All right, guys, so sprinting is going to require specific strength and power and physiological needs that you may not naturally possess. We're going to work these because all the technique in the world is not necessarily going to make you a really fast sprinter unless you possess some of these qualities. The first quality we're after is stiffness in the ankle and strength in the foot. Okay, when you sprint, typically people are going to try to sprint with their toes. That's not necessarily what we're after. We really want to hit with the middle of the foot. But what we're after is a very strong, stiff foot, like my guy right there. And what we're after also is a stiff ankle that does not bleed energy, right? If my ankle's giving as I'm sprinting, I'm spending too much time on the ground and I am bleeding energy. We want that impact to be right now like a hard fist, right? And a hard wrist, and not a soft fist and a soft wrist. You guys get the analogy there. So that's what we're after with the foot, and there's drills that we can do to train that and make you more efficient on that end. That brings us up the kinetic chain to the following joints, which would be the knees and the hips. If we're very stiff in the ankles, which we want to be to deliver the force into the ground and not bleed energy, we got to be very springy in the knees and hips. This is what's going to give us our reaction off the ground, okay? When we're accelerating, obviously we want to have very powerful drivers of the thigh, the knees and the hips. As we get more and more upright, we want to really take advantage of the spring reflex that we have in the knees and the hips. So we have stiff ankles, springy knees and hips. Now we're galloping down the track, and now we're very explosive and very fast, getting in from one step to the next. As we're going from acceleration, guys, into transition and trying to get taller and taller in our stride, one of the benefits of becoming really tall and getting towards that maximal velocity is the pre-tension we get in the leg before we hit the ground. When we're accelerating, it's all drive. So the foot's coming down at the same speed as the thigh is coming down. However, when we get to top end speed, we get a little bit of added bonus where we're creating stiffness in the muscle and a whipping effect of the foot into the ground. So as we're able to get the foot up and over, we're able to drive the knee into extension, which causes the hamstring to go into pretension before it hits the ground. This right here is going to just propel me into the track and up and over to the next step. If creating that tension in the hamstring is also going to accelerate the foot into the ground. As I mentioned, when we're driving and the shin angle is back in acceleration, it's all coming down to the same speed. When I'm in this position, upright position, and upright sprinting, my foot's coming down faster relative to my thigh into the ground. So I'm actually doubling the speed of my foot into the ground as my thigh's coming down, which is creating just more impact into the ground, more force into the ground, and really maximizing the little bit of time I do have on the ground in max velocity. All right, guys, let's go over some of these drills that are going to give you the foundation of strength and explosiveness that you need to be able to really be a fast athlete. All right, it all starts with an ability to absorb force, right? We always talk about dynamic eccentrics in our training and in our programming. That means an ability to stop force from bleeding and be able to generate the next step or the next movement in your movement pattern. When we're sprinting, obviously, is an ability to absorb the force that's hitting the ground so we can be reactionary off the ground. So one of the very simple drills you can do is you can start, let's say we're on a box, you could drop into a box and stick a landing with one leg, right? You could literally stick a landing with two legs. But the ability to stop momentum and hit the brakes is going to start creating that tissue tolerance to be able to go from one step to another at really, really high rates of speed and really control the tempo and really control the tissue expanding and be able to contract and absorb the forces that you need to be able to sprint fast. What's the next one? Ready? As we mentioned earlier, foot strength, ankle stiffness are some of the most important things you can develop to really, really, really be a fast sprinter. To develop the foot, you can do simple things like calf raises, right? You can do dorsiflexion drills. You can walk on your heels. You can walk on your toes. You can do jumping jacks. All that stuff's going to start developing the musculature in the foot. I would even go as far as doing some semi-lateral stuff so that I can absorb the force laterally, and then there's no bleeding of the energy laterally when I am pushing linearly into the floor as in a sprint. So that's one way to start strengthening the foot. You know, you can do single leg hops forward and back, side to side, and all that stuff is giving you the strength in the foot that you need. From there, the next step would be to go ahead and start strengthening the ankles. Something as simple as pogo hops, right? We want to be very reactionary off the ground. We want to hit the ground, get as much height as possible. We want to focus on that pop of the ground, and that's going to start giving you that ability to be really stiff in the ankles. You could even bend your knees and do it in this angle here, and now you're working that acceleration strength for the pop, right? So that's very, very simple drills you can start doing immediately. You can do a lot of reps of it, and it's going to give you that strength and that ankle stiffness to really be poppy and punchy off the ground. Guys, here's a drill that got really famous with the Altis coaches, and it's basically now teaching the foot to remain stiff and the ankle to remain stiff, and learning how to get spring out of the knees and hips, and they're called rudiment hops. And basically the idea is we're trying to jump without using the ankles. Usually when we jump, we go through the triple extension, and we end up off our toes. With a rudiment hop, we're jumping with our knees and hips. So I'll get myself into position here, and I'm literally just jumping, and I'm trying not to use my ankles to jump. I'm trying to teach my knees and hips to provide all the spring I need to jump. I'll show you from the front here. We're just gonna slightly go forward. You can go backwards with it. You can even go side to side. But the idea is to teach the body not to jump with the ankles, but only jump with the knees and hips, and that should translate a lot into your sprinting mechanics. Conversely, pogo hops are just gonna create a stiffness all the way through the kinetic chain. It's going to create stiffness in the foot and ankle, and it's going to create stiffness in the knees and hips, so you don't give as much. So for pogo hops, we're just stiff all the way around, and we're just popping off the ground. It's also going to teach you how to hit with the middle of the foot onto the ground. All right, guys, so now we get to combine it all together in something a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more demanding, and with a lot more intensity. So we're going to take the same concepts we do with our rudiment hops and with our pogo hops, and now we're going to apply it to hurdles. So now the athlete's got to jump way higher over, clear with the knees, attack the ground, and jump again. You can use 2, 3, all the way up to 8 to 10 hurdles, depending on the athlete's ability and how high and how intense you want to make this. I'll have David show a couple examples here. Pop, pop. Notice the minimal time on the ground. Notice how high he gets. Notice how high the knees recover, and the exact angle. I'm going to have him do one more rep for us so you can see this really well. Notice the bounce he gets off the ground, guys. This is vastly important how little time he spends on the ground doing it. So those are high hurdle hops.